takes anything seriously. Yeah, it's peaceful. Let me die in New Orleans and put some money in my coffin so they know that I'm important in the afterlife. And sacrifice is a hell of a ride, and I'm a hell of a guy, and I don't know when I'll die. Ascension always on my mind, recession always on my grind. Compassion something that I gotta find behind a child's eyes. I was just a kid and now I'm just that guy serving you fries and writing lines. I rhyme from 8 a.m. to early shine. Surely I'm something fine, like a wine, aged in time.
There's a lot more out there than what people would realize, and again, it's just one of those things where some people are just drawn to it.
I'm just starting like I'm Price, talking mark on the court. No, I'm right, no, I score, even though I'm white. Retire when I'm 20.
So there's a lot to be looked at when you're looking at the nation of black people and the way they learn to socialize and to enhance their spiritual activities.
Because they know that's something quicker than the dick that's fucking with you. Keep it up, you're going crazy, looking for my Cinderella. Can you fit the slipper, baby? Maybe we can cruise into the valley. Lately I've been feeling madly in love with the concept of feeling happy, so gladly I put my hands together and hope that the devil...
Everybody's doing voodoo all the time, and it's the reality that we're living in.
Die in New Orleans and put some money in my coffin so they know that I'm important in the afterlife. And sacrifice is a hell of a ride, and I'm a hell of a guy.
Some people will describe anything that could be like magic or spiritual work as voodoo. But truly to me, the voodoo is the religion of voodoo that's practiced in Haiti, that revolves around the different African spirits and the way that people serve those.
Tell me something. Do you believe in voodoo? Do you believe in spells and charms that can bring you luck? Do you believe if you stick a pin in a doll it can kill? Do you believe you can raise a man from the dead and make him your slave forever? Well, that's the voodoo of the movies. And White Zombie has a lot to answer for, which is why we're here in New Orleans, home to more voodoo you can shake a bone rattle at. So let's see if we can separate the fact from the fantasy.
The greatness of the latest, so I try to write my pages like an author with no patience. Writing novels for the cadence. Hey kid, hey misfit, hey little shit.
Dambala, this woman is ill.
New Orleans, a veritable hub of countless cultures and a place where the practice of voodoo is still a major keystone. The practices permeates the city, rooted in belief or purely celebratory, like during Mardi Gras. During these festivities, people can pay homage to the forces representing life and death, and even those few isolated from the belief find it difficult to remain indifferent to the touch of voodoo in a city that refuses to sleep. My first point of call on my journey was Jacob, who explained the structure and complex origins of voodoo practice. I was also intrigued by the traditional artifacts and totems as opposed to ones developed for purely commercial purposes.
It is the worship of ancestors and of the Loa gods, basically, and as in like European pantheons and witchcraft, was the Romans have their gods and the Greeks have their gods and so on and so forth. The Loas are basically the voodoo versions of the gods. If you're to look at traditional straight voodoo, it does originate in Africa, and it did come to Haiti with the slave trade, so it was brought over, and then when the slave trade just moved from Haiti into the US, it incorporated into everything over here. Hoodoo very much is more so an American folk magic. It's not as much derived from the African tradition as it is a big eclectic melting pot of tradition. It came over with the African Haitian voodoo, but it also mixed with the Native American magic and the Celtic and European witchcraft that was coming over. New Orleans is such a big melting pot, everybody's stuff just kind of all ran together and that formed hoodoo, and that's very much the hands-on root work, dolls, powders, oils, candles, so on and so forth.
From there, I continued onward to the French Quarter and the Voodoo Museum. I found it to be a fantastic introduction for tourists fascinated by what they've heard and seen about voodoo. However it is, what it is, a museum packed with antiques, artifacts and proverbs relating to voodoo.
The sinister power behind the White Zombie.
Throughout New Orleans, there are a wealth of professional practitioners of the art. So in order to gain further insight into the world, Priestess Mariam guided me through the practical and philosophical aspects of voodoo as a way of life, particularly that of the black community.
People will speak about things that they have not really come to terms to understand or to hear properly, because most people who attend where you find me here is people who've gone through some physical problems in their health or in their businesses. But it's the people outside will always work spells on themselves and how they present themselves in the environment. The black people grew up and became more organized with their way that they would make their spiritual acknowledgement through Baptist church or creating other spiritual churches and a spiritual ministry. Looking at the African people had no self-structured facility. If they had their physical recreation or their way to sing or dance, then if they was provided with the space, what people call Congo Square, then that was where they had their physical activity. But to many people, they say, well, that's what they did, their voodoo rituals. But then you have to get back to the 1700s when, and then for their spiritual service or anything we think spiritual, then they had to dress up to go to the Catholic Church. But for socializing, we had church, Baptist church, but then we had our Ring Around the Roses. We had places where we socialize, play, and so there's a lot to be looked at when you're looking at the nation of black peoples, okay, and the way they learn to socialize and to enhance their spiritual activities.
Eventually, I paid a visit to Jonathan's Botanica store in a New Orleans suburb to give me some overview of what voodoo means to the city's population, how integral and practical it is, and how entrenched it is in their lives.
And my store is primarily what they call spiritual products, which are candles, oils, incense, herbs. I mean, right behind me I have a wall of over 350 herbs, and this is really why they call a store like this a Botanica. And some people who come in here, they might have high blood pressure, so we sell them hibiscus leaves, and they drink that to bring their blood pressure down. You know, that has nothing to do with voodoo, really. Some people will describe anything that could be like magic or spiritual work as voodoo. But truly, to me, the voodoo is the religion of voodoo that's practiced in Haiti, that revolves around the different African spirits and the way that people serve those. And a lot of the practitioners at our store really don't have anything to do with that. They're either working with the Catholic saints, or they could be working with the Indian spirit, Black Hawk. South American people have all of their own way of doing things too. So the Haitian voodoo is really just a very small segment of that whole world. But some people will use the word voodoo to describe anything that really could be, you know, like if you light a candle to draw money, people will call that voodoo. Whereas that really has not, that's just magic. It really has nothing to do with the Haitian voodoo religion. One thing you have to remember is even some of the commercial practitioners might be authentic too. It's just that they're making a living off tourists, you know. But that doesn't mean they don't believe in what they're doing. You know, some of those people that might seem very commercial, their practice is real to them. It's just that the business that they have around it might seem commercial. But that doesn't necessarily mean that their practice is not genuine.
The commercialism, I think, has gotten a bit ridiculous. When you have dolls and things coming shipped over made in China, that's where I do have to draw the line, because you are losing a bit of the authenticness. It's got to be real. It's got to be according to tradition, really. It's got to be, like I said, just the real deal.
After stocking up with herbs and remedies, I went to visit another prominent priestess, a lady who is highly regarded by the city's residents by the name of Sally Ann.
So I'm initiated into Haitian Voodoo in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, and I acknowledge that I'm not Haitian. In fact, a total anomaly. I'm a Ukrainian Jew that's a voodoo mambo, and so what I do is slightly different than what you would see in Haiti. For one thing, I don't sacrifice animals. And so I do what's sort of sneeringly referred to as vegetarian voodoo. What I discovered about Haitian voodoo is that it's a mixture of a lot of different traditions and cultures, and it takes on the elements of different cultures that it encounters. So it's not purely African, but it's African-based, and it added to itself Native American practices and European Catholicism and Masonry with all its magic and mysticism and symbolism. And so it's all of those things, and it continues to morph and change and transform and add into itself. A voodooist would say that everybody's doing voodoo all the time, and it's the reality that we're living in. That there is an invisible world of great power, and it interacts with us and is part of the physical world, just as the physical world moves into the invisible.
One of Sally Ann's specialities is psychic readings, so I asked her to do a reading for me in the hope I could feel a spiritual connection to this world I wanted to learn more about.
There's a past life coming forward here, and this past life took place in around the area of Ireland. This was during more pagan times, but when there were the first conflicted encounters between the Catholic Church and those who followed old ways. You're seen initially as a young child with your mother wandering through fields and marshes into woodsy areas where she taught you a great deal about how to communicate with spirits. You were particularly gifted among your mother's children. You had the ability not only to recognize spirit in all things, but you were able to work through the elements to receive information, knowledge, to do divination. And as you wandered through the countryside, you were actively in contact with spirits who had passed on, as well as natural elementals. And then the people around you began to develop a great deal of fear that was encouraged by priests and the church itself. Fear of being touched by, dabbling in, being influenced by, acknowledging any of these spirits. That lifetime is having effect in your lifetime now. And you are experiencing a resurgence of abilities that you had then. An awareness that is beginning to sort of unwrap the physical world around you. It is slowly unraveling the cord that has held things together for you in the past, and causing you again to see and perceive between these worlds.
To understand the living, you gotta commune with the dead.
From way back even in the 1700s, there have been lots of whites getting involved in it. Again, it's a personal empowerment thing. Now, there is a lot of people nowadays around here that say, if you're white, you have no business doing it. But if you look back in the history books and the records, there were just as many whites involved. And it was one of those very taboo things in society that you were not supposed to do. And, you know, they would try to keep that hush-hush, but there have always been whites involved.
So it's St. John's Eve, which is a kind of voodoo ceremony where priestesses and practitioners, they come together to celebrate the life of Mary Laveau. And they will give offerings, whether that be jewellery or clothing or things that you can wear in your hair. It's a very special time, and everybody will gather on St. John's Bayou, which is like a bridge, and we'll see what happens tonight. So I've been here at the ceremony for around 2 hours now, and initially I thought it'd be quite wild and out there, because you kind of often get the impression that a voodoo ceremony is going to be crazy with lots of singing and dancing, but it's actually taken a more spiritual form. There's been silent offerings, and the priestesses have come together and they've sung spiritual songs, and it's been a really lovely kind of get together of people, of a community. It will go on for a few hours more, so I've told, and people are now sort of gathering together because they will get their head washed and they will be blessed, almost like a baptism into the water. So I just had my blessing. which consisted of these bowls, and inside the bowls is this kind of mixture. I'm not quite sure what it is, but it smells very orangey, and she put this over my head, the priestess, and massaged it onto the back and the nape of my neck, and a little bit onto the front of my chest as well, and massaged it into my hair. And it was very, very tranquil and therapeutic, and so afterwards she held my hands, both of my hands, and kind of shook them twice, and then we kissed each other, and that was the end of the blessing. I think one of the things that actually struck me was that the majority of the people are in the crowds and participating in the ceremony are white, and I actually only saw maybe about four black people within the crowd, which is interesting because what they're practicing is they're speaking French and Creole, or perhaps traditional Haitian language as well, and this was it just shows how kind of unified and how universal now the voodoo religion has become. I'm glad to have come here and experienced it. I've seen the offerings, I've seen the beautiful shrines, and the general kind of togetherness of people. So you probably have one question on your mind. Do I believe in voodoo? This quest has taken me all over the city. I've spoken to voodoo queens who say I haven't lived yet, and one who said that I've lived before. And I've spent 3 hours singing and dancing to the rhythm of drums on St. John's Bayou. I've even been anointed, truly blessed in the best of voodoo tradition.
Love like I was saying it was the plan, but now I'm back in Amsterdam. Some questions, can you answer them? Why do I go round and round?
Do I believe in voodoo? Well, perhaps it's the question rather than the answer that keeps voodoo alive. But I will just say one thing. If voodoo really does exist, it will always find a home in New Orleans.
But the chances if we take it are higher than if we fake it. No imitating the greatness of the latest, so I try to write my pages like an author with no patience. Writing novels for the cadence. Hey kid, hey misfit, hey little shit, what you doing getting lit at 2 in the morning? I'm trying to burn away emotions before I'm snoring, cause my dreams are lacking inspiration, motivation foreign to mind. Gotta find another reason and get back on the grind. That's everyday shit, so I'll be fine in due time.